Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 174th episode of our first run through House of Light, the expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist. We were about to make some decisions in terms of... Oh, hang on. Funny. Oh, right. My hotkey sometimes fills these up. I was wondering why I was doing such an odd combo. So we were about to basically start working on all of the lessons that we got from the salon. We don't have enough to sort of push everything over the edge, but the thing that I'm really trying to do here is get enough to. I basically need two. I need two lessons or two upgrades, and then that'll earn me the time to get the remaining memories. So the obvious one for me to use is the sea stories. So for that we need Grail and Moon, and there's two things that I'm going to get out of that. So one, I'm going to use there's a couple things that I want to prioritize. So the Satisfaction and the Gossip will be the first two that I apply. And I think I'll actually use the Intuition there as well. And those are all things that potentially Denzel will eat. Now, in truth, this doesn't matter as much as, I always have it as a consideration, but it doesn't actually matter as much as it seems. And that's simply because most likely I'm going to try and generate at least the Satisfaction and the Gossip again anyway. And that's just, because I need something to level up with. One other thing I want to keep in mind is the Scale and Sky. Okay, so none of those help. I was trying to see if there was a way that I'd be able to sneak in a Furs and Feathers upgrade, but I believe... Well, I guess the Beguiling Melody would help me with this, actually. So, yeah, it puts me a little bit behind in terms of... Actually, not that much, because if we need 4, we've got the Clouds. Okay. And if I can find some use for the secret threshold, that's even better. But yeah, I'm happy enough with this, so we will use the Arab. We will use Great Signs and Great Scars. Next up, we will take the Faust. That'll be for Furs and Feathers. So I guess at this point, the only thing I really need to do is get another Beguiling Melody. And you know what? Let's just get that from our old friend Applebright Euphanies. Okay, so that excuse me, that should cover me for the that should cover me for the last sea stories. For Disciplines of the Scar, we were going to put that towards sorry, not Ragged Crossroad. Or no, we were going to put it towards Ragged Crossroads. So for that, we would use the... Okay, we've got the Bittersweet Certainty. We've got the Regret. Hindsight, I guess? I'm trying to think of other examples of something that I could... Again, I'm trying to think of things that I'm not front-running Denzel with. Actually, you know what? I guess I'm already committed to using the Beguiling Melody, but what I can do here is I can get a Fear, and then the Fear will allow me to choose between Furs and Feathers and... Ragged Crossroads. I guess I read the Leonine Tantra recently, so I think we're on to the Key of Night. Okay, so the last is Resurgences and Emergences. That one I don't have as many options for, unfortunately. But I can take the Health. I can... start with the Impulse. Now we read the White Jane Tablet, so I guess we're on to Book of Masks? We definitely did 26 enticement, 7 torments. Okay. This is always the hard one. So again, Foresight. Well, first of all, we already have Foresight. Impulse we just got. Confounding Parable doesn't have Grail or Moth. Same story with Storm. Pattern, I believe this is Regrets. Yeah. Which we have and doesn't apply. Hindsight would help me with Scale, but actually, if I got Hindsight... that potentially frees up Stitching and Binding. For some reason I didn't get Assault, or I applied Assault. Not really relevant here anymore, though. Really am that short on Moth. Good to know. But the Gossip will help me, so... And weirdly enough, I think that actually covers us for the lesson. So at this point, I really should be reading more. And that one's actually a little bit of a harder one to deal with, because now the question is, well, what do I want to apply? One possible avenue would be to say, it's like, okay, well, we do the Songs of the Carapace Cross because, we don't really need it. I guess the problem here is that it's not the most useful. Like, ideally, I would put something towards sea stories. So maybe that's actually an argument for On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago Pursuit. I believe we could do that at Nona's desk without too much trouble. Can't use Resurgences and Emergences because I'm going to be leveling that up, so Desires and Dissolutions it is. And I don't think it's going to take that much to just level up the one. So let's see if we've got another candidate here. All right, so this is Moon, Moon, Moon. Presumably Scale in Moon, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. Grail and Scale. Scale and Nectar. Horns and Ivories. Okay, so maybe some Scale there. Yeah, some of these are, I don't want to say open questions, but they're definitely ones that I want to put some thought into. Sevenfold Slaying is basically the same story as before. Yeah, I don't know, like, I can try Songs of the Carapace Cross. I could do it at Caller's desk. But is now the time for me to sort of bring in a couple of extra Moth lessons that I'm just going to try and get rid of? Surely it would be better for me to take something like the Karashim Portal on. So I don't think I have a Moon straight out of one of these desks, but I'm going to guess that I can still read this. One short. I'd rather not give up the Tryst if I was completely honest. Well, actually, I guess I don't have to because I can use the Lunar Globe. Alright, I can master this mystery. Enough Moon to match Mystery Moon. And if I seem hesitant about some of the other... so if I seem hesitant about some of my freebie books, it's partly because one of the things that I want to do... So, like, some of the extras are just, low impact, you know, it's okay to just sort of let them run by. But one of the things I'm conscious of is that, you know, I've got the sun disfigured, we've read that. I've got the serpent root, I've read that, but we still have the sun's design, which I haven't read yet. In fact, because it's got Watchman's Paradoxes, maybe that's the next one that I read, precisely because I may not have any use for the lantern, but, well, I always have use for lantern, personally, but that'll actually be good for leveling up furs and feathers. So much so, actually, that I'm wondering if maybe I can give this a shot right now. So we'll take that at Collar's desk. This one I need to use the Faust. I do have Crack Track. I guess it doesn't... can we go a little lower? Sacrosalis Invicti is probably too short. Yeah. But I could add the Mirror Scope. Lantern Revelations. I can master this mystery. And sorry, just 1 second. All right, I think we're ready to push ahead. This will, again, it's creating a little more chaos for me in terms of just working out the lessons, but I think we'll be in pretty good shape. So I'll try and incorporate this hindsight. I'm going to wait the 15 seconds and then we'll see where the remaining lessons are. Okay, the skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. So, we have a hindsight, which if I... yeah, so that'll get replaced. So if we take out the Savage Hymn... yeah, the problem with taking out the Savage Hymn is there's no purpose for it other than... So one of these is going to wind up overwritten, I think is the easy way of looking at it. And I think I was actually counting on having the Beguiling Melody to level up Great Signs and Great Scars. Oh, but this is a fairly easy fix, actually. So if I take these 4, I can level up... I can level up Sea Stories, which is the more difficult of the ones that I'm working on. And the thing that's nice about that is that actually frees up some Grail for Resurgences and Emergences, which I think was the original purpose. And then I should still have enough... I believe I have enough duplicates that Disciplines of the Scar will still be okay. And we've got the Fear. All right, well, fair enough. Actually, that can go either place. Again, we've already got a book that we're reading for that, but the big one here is that I have the memories that I need to level up. So we may have duplicates, but the big thing here is I believe any one of these I can level without having to get any additional memories. All right, better now. Key of Night, the deliberations leading to a manifesto of the Worms of Escale as recorded around 1900 in the Bar Vienna in the cellar of the Hotel Ciervo in Noon. The Worms, all of whom use grandiose nom de guerre like Citizen Knife and the Midnight Pilgrim, agree that all previous iterations of their movement have been feckless and treacherous, and agree that the return of the pre-human hours, the gods from stone, is the true way to end the tyranny of eternity. The worms identify the wheel, the tide, the flint, Sulochana, the spider door, the excellency Nathobasis, and Wickle indistinguishable as the 7 necessary pentiments that must be returned to every history through the propaganda of the deed. This is an eccentric list and clearly a compromise. The process of thrashing it out clearly exhausts all the participants who don't specify the necessary deed beyond a vague reference to the loopholes. Book of Masks, Athena Vanna's work on the rogue hour called the Vagabond, who is also known as the Laughing Thrush, the Centipede, the Pilgrim, and by many other names, or, as Vanna has it, Masks. The Mask of the Laughing Thrush, says Athena Vanna, has a great friendship with the sun and splendor, the highmost hour of the Mansus, now divided and departed. The Mask of the Sight Thief painted the river in the Mansus. The Mask of the Vagabond was forbidden the Mansus, not for what she had done, but for what would occur. The Mask of the Centipede recalled her birthplace, Maya, which had punished her for creeping into the temple precinct. This mask cursed Maya to drink only dust and be remembered only by the wind, for not beneath any mask does she forgive, and the centipede's hunger is not to be forgotten. So that's for resurgences and emergences. White Book of Brittany, a volume of death lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman conquest. The white flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree run deeper than snow. The white flower is described as the death of wisdom, but wisdom can pass into sleep, not death, when the rage of glass is subjected to sufficiently powerful winter aspect while the ragged crossroads arts are invoked. In the mountains as upon the plain, there may not be a path where none has passed. Nangala of Lagash describes the secrets to be found in mountains. Nangala tells a number of lively stories about riddling ogres and wars between mountain tribes, but turned somber in the tale of the empty-handed hunter, a lover of the Grail who sought to match her appetites and join her as an hour, but in the end rent and devoured himself, giving his name to the mountains he had once roamed. Nangala claims that the Hours who sometimes manifest as birds, the laughing thrush, the ivory dove, the beach crow, and the witch and sister, meet at a secret location on a mountaintop to exchange gossip unheard by their peers. Now and then a mortal overhears them. The mortal is always obliterated, and the meeting place always changed. And there's the beguiling melody. Okay, so I believe that is everything we need to get the levels we need. So there was Furs and Feathers, there was Ragged Crossroads, and there's Resurgences and Emergences. Now, Furs and Feathers is the one that's an actual, for lack of a better term, kind of like a requirement. That's one of these things that I actually do want to move up higher. So I was definitely pretty heavy-handed with using up my Faust and Health. So we'll use Health here. Another fruit plucked from knowledge's tree. So the other thing that I want to try and do now, because we've got a little bit of time left in the day, we do have the tablet that I'm reading. And so, in theory, we're going to want to try and level up Furs and Feathers at least one more time tonight. Ideally more than once, but the question is whether or not I'm going to have the Elements of the Soul available. So, with that, we're going to need 4 sky or 4 sky or scale. I think I'll use the Fet here. But yeah, we should be in good enough shape. So we'll use Ava's desk. So first easy thing I'll do is take care of the music. We don't need to go to... We don't need to search too far for that. And then I can actually use the harp. Is it Bells and Braziers? Yeah. So there's the 4 sky. Now, I need 5, so I can go even further. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Okay. I think I'm out of desks though. Yeah, I can live with this. And then of course presumably Denzel will be making some memories for me as well. But obviously the next priority here at the Sweet Bones is I'm going to try and convert that shaft into a Faust. Okay, well, there's the hindsight I was looking for, although I think I already committed myself to it, so if I wanted to try and level up, I don't think I read a fear text yet, so nope, but I need this for the edge, so that doesn't help. Nope, but I can still use it for the winter. Okay. Also, it's for the same thing, so anything that I apply here should... Or, no, not this one. We've already leveled up Furs and Feathers. Sorry, I'm losing track. All right, the skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. So here we're just going to push ahead with whatever items I can level up. Given the fact that we are potentially going to be overwriting... Oh, dear. I'm actually going to either be overwriting the Hindsight or the Beguiling Melody at this point. Didn't think that through. So let's get... I think I'm going to get the Resurgences and Emergences out of the way, because this one's a little bit of a pain to recover. So yeah, I wasn't... I kind of just assumed that these were in the bag, and that was not a good assumption. But we also have a surplus in terms of the elements of the soul, so... He does a lot with silence, this man. The Kerishim Portalon, a beautifully illustrated and heavily annotated portalon, a nautical atlas of ports and destinations. It quickly becomes clear that many of its destinations no longer exist or never existed in the traditional sense, but the annotations remain fascinating. The routes to Noon, the long sanctuary across the Western Sea may remain viable. Two pages have been gummed together. When teased apart, they reveal a route to Ye's Behind the Waves, marked in red and gold inks with heavily underlined warnings. Here the final city, strike the hours, lest earth and sky break open. Now, it's telling here that I can't tell... I think this might be a gossip, but I can't tell for sure, so I think I'm going to reread this to be sure. On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago Pursuit, an account of an occult romance. A certain mech claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Theban branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who use the arts of water to conceal themselves. Matthias defied us to hunt the names of the moth in the wood to populate his pinned collection. The Amethyst Imago had dallied with the witch and sister, but she'd returned to the wood to plead the moth's pardon. The moth, as a whim or penance, set her out to lure the Long to a slough of nightmares. Matthias loved the Imago. Did he? Can Long love, or has that organ of their soul desiccated beyond repair? The Imago loved Matthias. Did she, or did she only enact a whim? He pursued her through the wood, but at last she turned aside from the nightmare slough, and they lay together where the bounds grow bright. So they learnt the Grail's pleasures, and this is the lore they won. Okay, so actually I'll say Sea Stories is a free agent right now because I may still want to apply that to something else. here we go. The sun's design, a scorched slab of black corundum, minutely scratched on every side with intricate ideoglyphs. This book houses a numen, a truth so powerful it can perhaps believe itself. In the city of Emesa, beneath the Church of the Holy Belt, is a sarcophagus of black corundum. Elagabalus lies, accursed of Janus, neither long nor mortal, neither man nor woman, neither a liar nor a speaker of truth, neither real nor imagined. On his light-suffused skin is made manifest the sun and splendor's grand design. Elagabalus is the source of one half of this text. The source of the other half is obscure, but its power is evident. It is impossible to be certain if the sun really planned for us to enter eternity. It is impossible to be sure if the Grail, the Vagabond, and the Forge stole this birthright from us, or saved us from it. But there is a great secret here. And paths of the sun. The sun has charted his paths, paths beyond walls and woods and bounds. When the sun lights our way, when we are ready, all of us will enter eternity. At least in the right history. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the cartographer and the Twiceborn can win a particular victory. This is also very helpful because it's got a very high level of forge. The knock would be helpful, but we've had that with Cosley's work anyway. But the forge in this case is going to be something that can help us push Denzel over the edge for some of our work. In fact, I may want to consider whether or not I can open the wing-haunted cave. We don't have that much time left, but I also don't think it would be bad to give this a try. I think we've got enough time to be able to read the books. There we go. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So as a precaution, I will free up the Faust. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie, with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. The Instruments of the Heart. Sister Isabel, then precentress of the Abbey Church of St. Brendan's, engages in dialogues with a heart-long of a kind called Dwendrazon that has taken partial possession of her body. The Dwendrazon, like all its kind, usually dwells in the mansis, but can enter the physical world by manifesting as music and take possession of a willing or semi-willing mortal who hears and loves that music, like Isabella. Isabella records her dreams of the High Mansis, where she is accorded the Dwendrazon's status and titles. In return, the Dwendrazon enjoys what it calls Sejoura, a welcome oblivion. Our mostly blessing is that we may never cease, except in Sejoure. There is something more that Isabella refers to as the Sejoura Magna, but she laments that her Dwendrazon will not tell her exactly what that might be. So that I can put here. The Intimations of Skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Fredrik Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory, a lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly, a lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed, but it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. So I think I'm going to start pushing. So the more I'm thinking about this, the more I figure that probably we're going to go all the way with sea stories. If, let me just bring back my notes. So I'm trying to keep everything charged, ready for the trip, but it's a little difficult to keep track of everything. So again, the plan here was to get basically items from 4 through 7. So we've more or less said that Rhyme and Remembrance is going to be in position 4. Now I may actually change my mind on that because Sand Stories is at 3, but the thing here is that we've got plenty of rows, so it's a bit easier to level up Sand Stories with something I've got a surplus from, rather than move up Rhyme and Remembrance. Although, obviously, Rhyme and Remembrance isn't that hard to level up either. So, yeah, if I say that Sea Stories gets a 7, Sand Stories gets, I don't know, a 5. Well, actually, if Path and Pilgrim gets a 5, then that means Sand Stories can move up to 6. And I clearly have enough with... excuse me. Actually, you know what? I'm going to write that down. because that doesn't sound like a bad plan, all told. So if I say Path and Pilgrim... Well, okay, but the thing is, Path and Pilgrim also has rows. So maybe in order to conserve, we say 2 to Sand Stories, 1 to Path and Pilgrim. But either way, Sea Stories goes to 7, so maybe we say Path and Pilgrim at 6 and Sand Stories at 5. And then, to be determined in terms of adjustments to that. But weirdly enough, I actually think that is the last batch that I didn't have numbers for. Everything else, it's just, again, through this iteration over the different episodes, I've actually gotten to a point not just where I have a rough idea of where I'm going to put them in the Tree of Wisdoms, but I actually have now narrowed them down. I was almost, sometimes you have these logic books. Raymond Smullian did some wonderful ones. Like the one title I remember, it's a pretty memorable one, To Mock a Mockingbird. But he had these wonderful logic puzzles. I believe one of them wound up in the movie Labyrinth. So it's the, the knights, one always lies, one tells the truth, so on and so forth. I think he is the one responsible for that, and I believe he actually developed one specifically for that movie, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, there's a few fun variations on that he's come up with. But anyways, the thing on if you like logic, you really it's not that hard to wind up if you think that way, if you sort of give yourself these constraints, and these constraints in this case here just wind up being, hey, I've already leveled this one up so high, so let's make sure that it goes into a higher branch on the Tree of Wisdoms, just because I want to maximize, my use of the lessons. And of course, those lessons are coming through things like Salons. It's not necessarily something that you intended, but eventually you apply enough restrictions that you can sort of work out that shortest path to your destination. Now, I'm not at all going to imply that this was completely random. I definitely had some broad targets that I was looking for, but basically this process has resulted in a point now where, even though if you look at the Tree of Wisdoms, it's looking quite empty, but in reality, I think every single slot that I'm going to fill, and there's not enough skills to fill the entire Tree of Wisdoms, but I believe every skill will be has a place, and I think we'll actually get to the top of the tree in these cases. I've got a lot of 9s sitting here. Anyways, for what it's worth. The Stinglefoot Songs. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time on the slopes of Huashan, near the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations with the grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The Singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The Singlefoots sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become Singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. So that would go to this one. The Locksmith's Dream, Portions and Proportions. The second volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. The frontispiece has been slashed with a razor. In this volume, Galmier records fewer dreams and explicates more on her own elaborate theories. We see this again and again. What is below can't escape what is above. The finest artisans all dream of the white door in the end. I'm no artisan, only a scholar. I think there's a secret that all these artisans know, but I think that secret is only half the story. Okay. An Introduction to Histories. The 17th century mystic and antiquarian, Claude Hersault, describes divergent incidents in 5 major histories. The prologue warns at length of the iniquities of one Julian Coseley, a former colleague who Hersault now describes darkly as a worm of worms. It seems that Coseley advised Hersault early in the writing of the book, but Hersault later became suspicious. Hersault identifies blood, silver, design, and the worms as the central axes of each of the histories, and claims that the so-called second history is the true one. So, more furs and feathers. And wistful air, let it rise in head and heart. Okay. So it would be nice if I can clear out a little of the surplus here. So we'll say Disciplines of the Scar. So this is obviously taking away from Furs and Feathers, but I can live with that. And the tricky one here is the Sea Stories, which actually requires quite a bit now. So if I went for the Confounding Parable, it's still not enough. But I can at least clear things out. So, all right. I've got at least some basics to work with. You know what? I'll just run this ahead. The skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. So let's take the Ragged Crossroads. Now, I guess I did technically say that I was going to be applying all of this towards the Watchman's Paradoxes. But then again, I can just use the Faust to earn some more money. So if I set aside the core here... 1, 2, 3... Yeah. Okay. No, I think we've got enough to work with here. So... I'll definitely level up 1 for Furs and Feathers. I should be able to get by with another Desires and Dissolutions. I don't think I will have enough to do the other Furs and Feathers, but I think we're in decent enough shape as it is. The only remaining question would be, do I have enough to get Denzel to the level I need him? So he's already at 2. We can get him up to 4, and then we can get him to 9 with the Newman. But we need to get him to 12, so I'd need to find another 3 forge in a pretty narrow time window. I've basically got 4 slots. 2 are going to be accounted... so between the metal and the... Well, okay, let's work this out, actually. So the metal and the Newman, so that's 1 minute. So that brings him up to 9. I could use a tool to bring him up to 10. And then the question is, where's the 2 for the forge? And presumably we'd have a 2 forge drink. I just can't think off the top of my head. Oh yeah, the Veiled Goddess Lapsang Suchong. Okay, so yeah, we should actually be able to get Denzel to open up the passage as well. Good to know. All right, well, we've got lots to look forward to in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.